Welcome back to Old Guy REI. We're back, Mikey and I, to do the Zoom highlights for our Wednesday call on December 18th. And we had a lot of great topics that night, didn't you think, Mike?
Yeah, meeting number 25 ran 3.5 hours. Keep the streak going. And you're going to continue doing it on Christmas and New Year's because they both fall on Wednesdays. Is that right?
Yeah, I was surprised. You know, I thought I would be there alone, but I've spoken to a couple of people that have said, "Hey, if you're going to be on, we'll jump in there with you." So that's great. I think it'll be fun. And I think those two might go off topic a little bit, just being the holidays, but that's great. I appreciate it. Um, so we talked about a lot of different things that night. One of them was about Section 8 and inspections. And I brought up our market in St. Louis because that's what we know. And in St. Louis, we have to have an occupancy inspection from the county, and they come out and make sure the home's in good shape, good enough shape to be a rental. But if you're going to consider doing Section 8, then you have to schedule a Section 8 inspection also. And I've just heard recently that some people don't like that because it could take weeks to get them to come out and look at a property to make sure it's in good enough shape for their requirements to put a tenant in there. And also, since we have property management, it cost us about $400 for the property manager to schedule the inspection with the county. They had to go out there and meet with the inspector. And there were some things we needed to correct. So then we corrected those things. Then the property manager had to go back out there and meet them to get them signed off. So I understand the cost, but $400 is a lot. And I'm gonna reach out to our property manager too to find out if they're going to charge us the same for Section 8, because if they have to meet the housing inspector out there, then they're going to charge us for that time too. I think one nice thing about the county inspections is that they only do them when you replace a tenant. So when a tenant moves out, you're going to have another county inspection done before you place a new tenant. So I'm hoping that the tenants will stay a while and help mitigate that cost. Do you have that kind of thing in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, we have occupancy permits, and I think it's every 3 years that it's checked, but it is similar. Once, even within that 3 years, if there's a tenant turnover, then there will be another occupancy inspection.
And in your area, in that area that you invest in, is there a cost by your property manager, or do you know yet?
I haven't received anything yet. It is still early in the month, so I want to see how this month ends, and I'll report back if I am charged, just to let you know.
Okay, that'll be great. I think one of the other things that was kind of, I don't know if you want to call it controversial, but some of the people in the group didn't like Section 8 because they said their inspections might be a little bit picky, and they call things out that they wouldn't consider a health or safety issue, like a cracked light switch cover, or paint needing to be done on a windowsill or something like that. But I think I feel the opposite, because Section 8 is going to come out each year, and that's just another set of eyes on your property. If you have to fix a few little things, I think that's better. It'll help you keep the house nicer and in better condition overall. The one of the other things that I think, and we're still kind of new to the Section 8 scenario because we did have one Section 8 tenant that we inherited. So now that we're leasing new units to Section 8, there's a lot more learning to do there. But um, I think another layer of protection as far as keeping your rental in nice shape is that when Section 8 comes to do the inspection, they're not just looking for landlord issues. They're checking to make sure the tenant is keeping up a certain level of maybe cleanliness and things like that. And they're taking basic care of the unit. So that's another thing I think is a good idea. but also when we start to go and renew a lease, I think our property manager says they do it at 8 months in. I was pushing for 6 months, but I think 8 months is fine. Our property manager will go in and have a look at the unit before we release or re-sign that tenant. So there was a lot of good information about that.
And you've talked well about how it was your property manager giving maybe one rental number, then you did your research on the Section 8, seeing what the HUD FMRs were, and you came back with those numbers, and you negotiated with your property manager saying, let's try this for Section 8, and I believe we can get this higher number, which is even above what you had for your original cash on cash calculations.
Yeah, that's right. When, Matt and Dion had suggested that we be involved in getting to know the people at the housing authority, even finding out who your caseworker is eventually, and that we can be included in email sent back and forth from the property manager to them or vice versa. But yeah, that was a concern of mine because when we bought this one property that we're talking about, I was running rents at 1150, which is what we were getting for a similar unit. And when I checked in with the property manager, he was closer to 1,000 because of he did a CMA or a current market analysis on rentals in the area. And when I reached out to the housing authority, they had a payment schedule for their office and they were paying 1375 for a 2 bedroom, 1 bath. So that put a couple things into motion. If we put the unit up for rent for what the property manager said, say $1,000, and then Section 8 or a voucher holder saw that, they could rent it for the $1,000 and we'd be losing out on that 1375 price. So I asked our property manager if we should start at 1375 and see if we get any Section 8 interest. And if we need to go down a little bit from there, we're still would be way ahead of what he was going to market it at. So, and we talk about that a lot too. You got to talk with your PM. They should be willing to do this for you. And he said, we'll try it. And, and if it doesn't work, we can lower it a little bit at a time or make concessions or things like that. So I was thankful that he at least listened and was willing to do that.
Yeah, that was really good. And I remember right when this year was starting, you were one of the first to check the HUD FMRs and you said the numbers came out. So we all jumped on the site, looked at the different rates and how much it had jumped up. So yeah,
Yeah.
you're on top of that program really well.
Yeah, I got a little bit nervous at first because you remember the first one I checked, it went down for 2025. It went down about $50. But all the other, because we're in different markets, all the other areas, the FMR was a little bit higher for 2025. So that made me feel better. But even so, the FMR for this property that we're talking about for 2025 was 1,090, which is right in there where our property manager was going to list it. But when I talked to the actual housing authority, they gave me prices. They gave me a price list and it was 1375. So that's what we're shooting for. I know one of our other friends on Wednesday nights, he recommended shooting for the stars because you might get it. And that's what he did in Pennsylvania. And he got some great tenants at the rents that he was hoping for. So, like I said, if we have to go down 100 or even 150, we'll still be way ahead of what the PM was going to go for in the beginning.
And one of the questions I always had with the HUD FMRs is those rates that they're listing, that's including utilities. So for you to understand market is maybe you would look at the HUD FMRs, how they have it listed, then maybe knock it down, maybe a couple hundred, 200, 300. And that's kind of what you're looking at for market rent for the not Section 8.
Yeah, because I've been paying utilities while these units have been vacant. So They have gas and water and sewer and garbage. The sewer bill has been like $66 consistently. So I figured about $60 per. So that's $240. And we're not sure yet if that 1375, if the utilities will be taken out of that or if they will be added to it. So like I said, we're learning a lot. So hopefully we'll have great news when we come back and after the unit's rented and see, and we can tell people exactly what happened.
Yeah, thanks. You've done a ton of work and it's teaching me a lot. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. Um, we had a couple of people uh, that had tenants move out, and one of them said he hadn't been into his unit. He owned it for 5 years. He hadn't had to go in there, but the tenant just moved out, and he found it pretty dirty, pretty worn out, and wasn't too excited about it. He figured it was going to cost him around 9,000 to turn the unit, but that's, a lot of flooring and paint and the hauling the trash that they left. And he reminds us that once you have a unit for a while, the tenant, he's been setting aside 15% a month of the gross rents to go towards issues like this because they are going to come up, and that we shouldn't feel like we're losing cash flow for any length of time because the positive cash flow is separate from what you're taking out for expenses. So he had a lot of good points. It was nice to see that video. And one of our other friends in Washington also, she had a tenant move out and she negotiated with her property manager because the original bill for cleaning the unit was 5,300. And I believe her and her husband went in and did some of the work. She renegotiated with the PM and got it down to 3,000. They're going to put that on the tenant because it was all tenant caused. And if the tenant doesn't pay it, then they will be turning that into collection agency. And so that was her plan. But with people, with tenants moving out, especially at this time of the year, some of our friends are a little nervous about raising rents right now. A few of them said they're waiting till springtime. That way, if the tenants do move out, it's at a better time of the year to re-rent. I know in your market in Pittsburgh, winters are pretty brutal too. So what's your thought on when you would like a new lease signed?
If it's after March, from what I talked with my property management, they suggest because it's around that November to March time, it's kind of difficult. Afterwards, then it starts to get better.
Yeah, they even say a couple of people had said specifically that January is the worst time of year to need to fill a unit.
And I don't know if you follow Sophie Elaine on Facebook, but she's a close friend with Matt, Lumberjack Landlord. And she was talking about unfreezing pipes with an oil space heater. The brand was Pelonis, Pelonis, on Home Depot. It was $80. She said that was a lifesaver for her because she could use that. And she knows that the other space heater, is that the air one? It like sparks
Ooh.
and she said that she likes the Pelonis one, the oil heater, because you can leave it unattended. So she had mentioned that, and then I saw in the comments Matt had talked about someone asked the question, do you need an exhaust for that? Or do you need an exhaust or a vent for that? And he said no, it doesn't need an exhaust because he had explained it. Sorry, I couldn't remember it off the top of my head, but it was a pretty good post. I liked it.
Yeah, I don't know her. I'll have to get her information from you, but or maybe you could post it in the notes for everybody to access. We do use that heater, that specific heater in our bedroom at home, and it is really nice. It gives you a nice heat. There's no fumes just because it's oil filled. Uh, All that does is it heats the oil inside. It looks similar to the old radiators in like the Victorian homes. It's that kind of shape. It's a little electric heater, but it's oil filled and it's really clean, so you don't have any fumes or any need for venting on something like that.
Yeah, I highly recommend Sophie Lane, SophieLaine on Facebook. She posts real inspirational messages and she kind of gives tidbits here and there. And she's a big follower of Matt too.
Okay, so is she an investor herself? Do you know?
She is she interviewed with Matt and she was a baker at first, and then she got into real estate and now she works with lending and she's in the PA, Pennsylvania area.
Okay, okay, good. There was some other things, speaking of um, radiators and plumbing. One of our friends was having issues with a plumber he was interviewing to hire, doing a rehab on one of his units, and he was trying to verify the plumber's insurance, and the plumber was giving him the runaround. So we were just saying he just needed to let that guy go and find another one because the plumber was trying to charge him like $600 or something to be added to his insurance policy as an added insured. And we've done that before because our property managers require that they be added to our policies. And it doesn't cost us any extra to do that. And he was surprised, but I've only had a couple of customers over the years ask me for proof of insurance. It's just not something people ask for, and they probably should. But when they ask me, I just need to contact my insurance agent and he'll email them straight my proof of insurance and that is valid and things like that. You should be able to go on like a Better Business Bureau website, or here in California, it's the Contractor State License Board, and you can pull up anybody. If I give them my contractor's number, they can pull me up, see if I have any insurance, how long it's good for, that my license is good, and things like that. So it shouldn't cost extra. I think that guy was just trying to, get some money out of him for no
I,
reason.
and I let that slip through the cracks myself. And I actually went to the site, checked my contractor, and then his insurance is okay till next 2026, I believe, in April. So yeah, just typing in that insurance number helps a lot just for your safety of mind.
Yeah, and that's an easy way to do it. You don't have to get into a confrontation with the people or anything. Um, but it is important. I mean, if they're working this, and that was your roofer, right? So if they're up
Yeah.
on the roof and somebody
Yeah.
falls off, that's not good. We got to talking about how many how many units or how many doors do we think we need to retire? And I thought one of our friends brought up a great thought was because he said if he was trying to get enough doors to replace his W-2 income, that he would be buying so many properties. But I think the way we think about it is how many units do we need to cover our monthly expenses? And I think most people are like 3 or 4 times that amount, right? So if you need, say, $5,000 a month to live on and you're getting $300 a door, how many doors do you need to add up to the 5,000 and then go beyond that? So that's how we think. I think if we could have enough to cover our monthly expenses and still have money left over to save, then we would be in a pretty good spot because we obviously would have reserves on top of that for the properties.
Yeah, we had talked about Coach Carson, and we really got inspiration, all of us, from that. And I love his content where he talks about the small and money investor, that book.
Hmm.
It's such a great thought because I would rather be as small as possible and hopefully keep it that way with less headaches. Because, man, I don't know, for others, but just from my experience, every time I get a new property, it takes some time to stabilize. And this just getting to stabilization, that's pretty rough sometimes.
Yeah, and that was one of the other things people brought up during that conversation was the more units you get, the more like a job it is. So, we always go back to Dion's or Coach Carson, just enough units to live off of, and the options that we'll have, 5 or 10 years down the road either being able to sell one or two and pay a lot of them off, because that was another part of the conversation was, should we pay them off? Because the cash flow then is much greater. And that's good when you're getting towards the end of your journey. But while you're still trying to grow, it doesn't make sense because you're tying up a lot of money that could be used to purchase, for down payments to purchase other properties.
And that's what we talk about a lot is portfolio management because we have so much thoughts running through our head and we have all these different chess pieces. It's like, where do we make moves? For me, being so new, when I go to the Vegas event and I'm talking to someone who knows the entire chessboard and all the pieces, they just expand my mind because they'll show me a move I didn't even realize I could make. So
Yeah.
it's really hard trying to get into the details of what's my next move? How should I move this piece? Or is there a part of the board I'm not even seeing? Yeah, that's we always have discussions like what should we do next? So it's
Yeah.
always fun.
It's really mind blowing sometimes because of what you just said. Like just having a conversation with someone, they'll mention something and you're like, I didn't even know that was possible, or I didn't even know that was a thing. And how much time does that save us, right? So networking is huge. Just talking to people and hopefully other people are willing to chat, because we've said before that, you and I and a few of our other close friends in the group are just nuts about real estate. Not everybody is, but once you find someone that is, it's really exciting to talk all the time, and you just get so much great information and time saving information through that.
Yeah, and you bought a couple properties with cash, and I was asking you how you did the numbers on that, and you said you would still run the numbers, the cash on cash return numbers, as if you're getting a loan, putting 25% down, just to make sure that it pencils and you still got appraisals on them, inspections on them. And then now that's another piece you have maybe down the line if you want to put lending on it or whatever you can as options.
Yeah, it is a little bit hard. I know the benefits of putting a loan on it because we'd be able to acquire another property, but that cash flow is really nice too. So it's a big toss up. I think it will depend on, how far we can get. If we can pick up a couple more properties without putting loans on those, then that would be great. Um, but yeah, that I did run the deals as if we were buying them with loans. And that was another part of the topic that night was some of the people were saying they feel safer too buying with a loan because there are a few more checks in the process. Like you're going to need an appraisal, you're obviously going to get your inspections and stuff. But when you buy cash, you don't need any of that stuff. So there's not as much protection, I guess they thought. And I agree because I've told you before, we bought one cash and when you buy with a loan, the loan company is after you to get insurance. But this time we were buying cash and nobody mentioned insurance. So I didn't get insurance and we were without it for like a week before I realized that I needed to place it myself. So little things like that come up. And
And
it
was
could,
the paperwork really small compared to Freddie Fannie?
yeah, I think it was probably like 5 signatures or something like that. It was pretty crazy. I wish I had money to buy everything in cash.
Oh, that sounds like a dream. Oh, man.
Yeah, so um, I think that was everything that we covered that night. Was there anything that I missed?
We there was that one investor talking about having he works with property management and then just considering having a B team just in case things were to maybe go a different way or all of a sudden something changes. I thought that's a great idea. I haven't done anything like that. I did change property management. So I have an existing one, maybe I had a relationship with, but I don't know if I would go back to that same one as before. So just trying to network more, that put a thought into my head is, hey, maybe I should try to reach out and try to establish a B team.
Yeah, that happens. That is a good thing to talk about because we were even joking around like, what if your property manager retires before you do, right? And you still need, and one of our friends did have that happen to her, and the service changed, and she ended up working with someone that she couldn't really work with because it was totally different from the manager that she was used to. And we have had that. I've mentioned to people before, when you're looking for a property manager, you'll usually hook up with their salesperson, right? That has all the right answers. We'll take care of this. We take care of that. We'll do this for you. But that's not the person that's going to be managing your property. So you need to find that person and have the conversation with them. And that's bitten us a couple of times, and we've changed PMs because of it. But yeah, it's not a bad idea to check around. And depending on the market too, sometimes there's going to be 100 different PMs. Sometimes there's only 3 or 4. So you need to be prepared for that too, because we're in a couple of really tiny markets in Illinois specifically, and there's like 3 property managers there. So
Yeah. I think especially how you're spread out. If you're in one market, but your properties are in different areas, maybe they'll only cover a certain area, but won't get something that's maybe more to the east or more to the west or whatever
mhm.
location.
Yeah, and we bought our first property in St. Louis because of the property manager. So if something happens to him, I don't know what we would do.
You had that one conversation that was interesting about painting with the one customer you had. And I thought that was interesting how you were going to use Behr product from Home Depot because they match. They can get the Kellymore, which is now it's kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
gone.
Yeah, Kelly Moore went out of business. Yeah, that's right. So I haven't, I've only used one paint over the years that was really just garbage, and that was when Montgomery Ward's was still in business. That's how old I am. So Montgomery Ward's paint was just like water. But everything else we use these days, we use Behr a lot. And I like them because they do have the formulas that match the Kelly Moore colors. They'll match anybody's colors. And they do have a tier of paints. We usually land right in the middle. But but I like the quality of their paint. And of course, if you buy the bottom of the line, it's not going to cover as well. You'll probably need a couple coats. And I really think you need 2 coats anyway to get the true color. And so I like their paint. It's unfortunate that Kellymore went out of business because I really like their product too. But now we use Sherwin-Williams a lot, and Behr, and Benjamin Moore is great paint, but it's super expensive. I don't know why they charge so much for their stuff, but it is good.
Yeah, that was interesting how you broke it down because you're talking about the one coat and then maybe do the semi-gloss on the one area. And
Mhm.
yeah, I couldn't
Yeah,
catch
yeah.
what you said. That was,
Nowadays,
yeah.
nowadays, I think for like rentals, a lot of people will just do eggshell everywhere, right? That's real scrubbable. It's real durable. You could do semi-gloss, but I mean, even in a rental, it looks kind of weird because it's so shiny everywhere. But those are going to hold up to kids and marks and things like that a lot better than a flat paint will. And but when we do work for our clients, we'll usually do flat on the ceilings. We'll do an eggshell on the walls, and then we do semi-gloss on the doors and trim, window trim and baseboards. And that seems to be, we've done a couple jobs that they've had us do one color everywhere, walls, ceilings, doors, trim. And I didn't think I'd like it, but it does look pretty good because you can still tell the difference between, say, a door trim and a wall. I thought everything was just going to be, I don't know, too muted, but it turned out nice. And we've done a few like that. And it definitely saves money because you're only using one kind of paint. The cost does go up quite a bit from flat to semi-gloss, so that's part of it. I almost forgot. One of our friends also brought in a spreadsheet and shared that with us that night, talking about the different tiers of Hemlane because he's thinking of he he's investing in Detroit. He lives in Maryland, right? So he's not happy with his PM and he's thinking of taking that over with the help of Hemlane. And I think the way I feel about it is that it is still kind of risky because you have to build a team of contractors. Um, and so it's really just like self-managing out of state. And I really don't think I could do it myself. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, we've had Dana on, and she gave great insight. I know when we talk to other investors, they break down the details of it. Or I know Financial Firefighter was saying if the rents are below 1,300, it wouldn't make sense. And another investor said he likes Hemlane, but you want to make sure what type of network for their handymen and women. It's like you kind of have to know all the details as it relates to your market because it could change based on where you're located.
Yeah. And I guess that's kind of like we were talking about the number of property managers. If you're in a big city, they're going to have a lot of vendors, right? But if you're kind of out in the country or some sub-market, they might not have as many people that they can call in for repairs and things like that. So then you would be responsible for those things. And I know Dion uses the Thumbtack app, which a couple of our friends also use, and they've had good success. So that might be one area to reach out. And and that's a good one because they do get ratings. Um, so they don't want to lose their rating status, so they're going to try to keep providing good service for you, which is a plus.
Yeah, and there's that even one investor we know who has used the Thumbtack app. Once he finds the people he likes working with, they go off of the app just so that he can work with them directly. And actually, the handyman saves money, more money that way. I mean, yeah, they make more money that way.
Yeah, I know. They were after me to sign up with them, and it does cost the contractor for every lead that they get. And sometimes the contractor has to pay the fee even if they don't pursue the lead. And I think that was back when it was with Angie's List. Now it's just Angie. But yeah, I didn't like that part of it. So um, yeah, so calling or finding a contractor through Thumbtack, say for painting or something, and while he's there, you find out he does, plumbing and electrical and everything too. So you have another lead for those kinds of projects too. So that was a great tip. Okay. Well, I guess since you mentioned, or as you mentioned earlier, we will be on for Christmas. So the next time I see you will be Christmas, and then we'll do a recap of the highlights that following that meeting. So thanks again for being here to talk about all this stuff with me. And I know people have been leaving comments, so they really appreciate you being here too every week. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, thank you. I just try to like this format where I'm the new one, you're the veteran, and I just like throwing questions to a contractor with 3 decades of experience. So that's very valuable. Thank you.
Yeah, anytime. I'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good.